Module 13, Relational Summary Lecture, GEE1. The sun also rises. The sun rises in the east. When I visited Fukushima, Japan, years before the nuclear meltdown, we spent New Year's Eve in the land of the rising sun on an east-facing beach, following the tradition of being the first to see the sun dawn on a new year. You'd be forgiven for thinking that if you did as the Beatles song suggested and followed the sun, that such places would be great places to capture solar energy. But of course, from a biological perspective, there's nothing special about being the first nation to be bathed in sunlight. Ultimately, east or west, all countries at the same line of latitude receive the same amount of sunlight because the longitude lines separating the eastern and western hemispheres have little ecological meaning. With that said, it is still vital to understand how the distribution of countries and continents affects what Eastern tradition calls feng shui, or wind-water, how it affects water and air currents and the resultant weather and climate. Now, I've claimed that the longitude lines separating the eastern and western hemispheres have little ecological meaning. Yes, the eastward spin of the Earth around its north-south axis causes the Coriolis effect that drives the winds and rotation of the ocean currents that carry heat throughout the planet. But whether a country is in the east or the west says little about how its environment will develop, which is why the vegetation in Korea bears so much resemblance to that of New York. You can rather look for meaning in the position of countries around the equator and the tropic lines of latitude, which, due to the Earth's peculiar tilt and its equatorial bulge, make the southern and northern hemisphere distributions of land masses have everything to do with the weather, with the seasons, with cold winters and hot summers and the accumulation of ice at the very real poles, which are having a tremendous influence on ocean currents and their distribution of heat and cold around the globe, and the impending sea level rise occurring as the poles melt. Now, there was a time 200 million years ago when all the continents now spread out from east to west were merged together into a supercontinent called Pangaea, and the climate was quite different. According to Science Daily, quote, Pangaea was a hothouse then. Temperatures were about 20 degrees Celsius hotter in the summer, and atmospheric carbon dioxide was 5 to 20 times greater than today, end quote. The article goes on to explain that there was a rainfall gap at that time that, quote, depended on variations in the Earth's precession, or the wobble on its axis, coupled with the eccentricity cycle based on Earth's orbital position to the sun. Together, these Milankovitch cycles influence how much sunlight or energy reaches different areas of the planet.